Would you like to talk more about marijuana?
Right? You're a stoner.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's a Brooklyn accent.
Ridiculous.
All right.
No, not by any means.
You don't come back from that.
And I love weed.
I love weed. Awesome. This is what you call a Brooklyn accent.
You can be my doctor any day.
You don't come back from that. You don't come back.
Well, why is that relevant?
Yeah.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Why don't you take off your shirt now? And she's like, oh, yeah, it's hot. Okay.
You better chickadee check yourself before you riggedy wreck yourself. This is deep, man. This is so deep. To me, that's just a disgusting person. Okay, excellent.
Totally. So I went to CU Boulder. Totally.
These are the problems you have to deal with if you want to be a podcaster. There is no such thing as easy podcasting. Now make up your mind, son. What do you want to do?
Top shelf buds for a low price.
You do what you gotta do, you know?
Actor, a cracker, whatever, freaker cracker.
You're right, and I think about it every day because all I did for years was risk management. So, my God, I always have a plan B for everything. I have a C and a D and maybe even down to a Z.
I think Willie Nelson should be president.
But really, it's the vape pens.
Wow.
Oh, man, that's changed everything. Now we can just be high everywhere, and that's great. And because it's a slightly different kind of high, I call it a working high. I'm not so bombed out that I can't do my job well. I can actually do my job better in many cases.
Yeah. This is your final warning.
Oh my gosh! Did you hear that? Oh god!
Oh, and that's when I said, whoa.
Bang!
Imagine the facial on your back.
The Constitution says that we have the right to consume cannabis.
Fuck that.
Do you feel like we're friends now?
Go prepare for your death.
Go to the grind and I'm going to make the dollar.
I just think we can be such a healthier society. And
You know, I don't pay taxes, don't need to, because everything is given to give away.
I've observed so many emotions in life and so many different experiences and wanted a medium to be able to portray that to other people and connect with other people on another level.
What the fuck, man? Like, what are you doing over there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Oh my God, I'm vegan!
She's my biffle, my best friend for life. I love this girl, and she's really good. And I said biffle.
Yeah, well, you know what? When I was passing out dabs earlier, I think that,
Really?
Matter of fact, speaking of dabs.
Let me take 2 hits here, and then we'll be good to go.
Think about empowering yourself.
This is outrageous. I cannot take this anymore.
We're not dummies here.
That's what we want to do. We want everybody to express their creativity, get high, and if we can help you get laid, we're really.
But we're not hippies, though. We're like tech hippies.
Welcome back to the Cannabis Community Project.
Welcome to the Cannabis Community Project.
Whoa. Really?
Hey, nice. Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, totally.
I love cannabis.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what? Like, man.
Yes, and that kind of goes back to a lot of people in my generation when marijuana was akin to stuffing straw in your mouth and setting it on fire. It was pretty harsh and nasty stuff in those days, not like the sweet buds we all seem to see around town now.
Oh, really?
Go to the grind and I'm going to make the dollar.
No, we're not going to do that.
Man, I doubt it.
Smells so green. And now me too. Boing, 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 boing. Smells so green. Now how about you?
I had to get out one day.
I still have a lot to learn.
I'd be like booty, 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 titty, 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 booty, 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 titty, 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 booty. Take it. You know what I'm saying?
Get that on the air.
Don't do that. It's dangerous.
Freaking technology.
One step at a time. Yes, is this the Cannabis Community Project?
Open up, Colorado. It's 420. Time to grind and burn.
This is not your son's stoner show.
And now, broadcasting live from the Dink Studios at 3835 Elm Street in Denver, Colorado. It's the Grind and Burn, a podcast from the Cannabis Community Project. Last year, there was over 200,000 people that came to Colorado. How many of them came to start a business? The competition is heating up. So if you have a business, an idea, or just some thoughts about cannabis that need to be shared with the community, do it on this show. Contact me at brainstorm@cannabiscommunityproject.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brought to you live from the Dink Studios at 3835 Elm Street in Denver, Colorado. It's the Cannabis Community Project. And here's your host, Brainstorm. Check-a-doodle, 1, 2, 3. Check-a-doodle, 1, 2. Continual study and work towards excellence. I believe in the saying, you are today and you will be tomorrow what you do and think about most of the time. Now, that's a quote that I've been using for years from a number of idols and mentors that I've had over the years, in a constant search of self-discovery of who I am. Who am I, right? Who are you? Who are you is the question I've been asking everybody for the last 3 years as they sit in front of the microphone with me. But it's a question that I pose to others as a reflection to explore myself. Who am I? When I graduated high school, I had in my head that I was going to work for some credible institution, big organization, long-term growth, advancement, high salary, the whole deal, 401k. When I was 18, I applied and got a job at Norwest Bank, later merged into Wells Fargo, and worked the next few years of my life out of high school for Wells Fargo Bank. Actually, a great experience. It's working in one of the region's largest cash vaults. Vaults literally the size of a city block. As I pushed carts that had millions of dollars on it, and I saw visually what it looks like to handle thousands of dollars and millions of dollars and the counting of money, and got this sense of money from a physical standpoint. This is what spawned my interest and curiosity in money and business, which I think, honestly, I've always had my whole life looking back. I worked for Wells Fargo for 3.5 years before finally quitting. I did so out of necessity. I was a full-time student, and the great hourly wage was no longer livable, so it led me to a search for a new job. Never once did it cross my mind to be a salesman. See, salesmen were never really a job per se. It was more of a personality, right? Arrogant, lying, pressure, sleazy, all those things that we see as the persona of a salesman, but you never thought of it as a job or as a career or as a self-reflection of identity. So at a young age, I was frantically looking through papers, looking for all these jobs that would come about of interest to find an offer of minimum wage or a skill set beyond what I had. With no luck, I finally came across an ad in the paper that said $22.50 a month, guaranteed, part-time. Coming from a month's pay of $800, this sounded like a miracle. I went to the interview and told the guy I would do whatever it took to make that kind of money. And with my time at the company, I did, selling a $2,850 vacuum cleaner. I won't bore you with the details of my door-to-door stories at a young age, learning how to sell high-priced vacuum cleaners to families that probably couldn't afford them, and honestly, who knows what the difference was between your store-bought, $200 one. But it was a real turning point in my life. I realized that I was calling this my first sales job. But in retrospect, it was the first time I realized that since I was 9 years old, I've been following the same formula. I had something I needed or wanted, and selling is what enabled me to obtain it. As a kid, I would read comic magazines, where in the back, toys could be won by selling greeting cards door to door. Now imagine this today, but back then, as a kid, you could subscribe and they would send you a box of greeting cards, and you could go around your neighborhood by yourself, at least my parents let me, knocking on doors, selling greeting cards, accumulating these stamps to then mail off and claim your prize of which cool toy you could win. So at 9, I wasn't thinking I was a salesman. I was thinking, to get what I want, I have to sell. And I wanted the toys, and they wanted me to sell these stationery and greeting cards. So that was my introduction. Now, I can't remember what my strategy was, if I ever planned one, or what was the most effective presentation. I do somehow remember doing it, vaguely. But it stayed with me for years, to this day, right? 30-some years later. So to sell effectively, you need courage. And as a young kid, I think I just had a lack of fear. Mostly because I didn't know what to expect. As a result, at age 14, at school, a man from the newspaper, I believe it was the Denver Post, he was looking for kids to work for the summer selling subscriptions door to door. Now, I can't say getting people to Denver Post was important to me, or I cared if they had that paper over some other. However, I did care about the $2 per subscription I was getting. So once again, I wasn't thinking I'm a salesman, but instead, to get what I want, I have to sell. And these people want me to sell the newspaper, or at least subscriptions. Later on, and actually before, I would do a paper route, old school style, taking over from my older brother, where they actually allowed kids to go to door, getting up at 5 in the morning, rolling newspapers, and going out around the neighborhood throwing newspapers, and then once a month going around collecting the dues for those. These are jobs that used to exist that no longer exist for kids anymore. Later on in life, past high school, actually a few years past, I moved to Mexico, something out of the norm. I was young, but not too young, had some skill sets, had some interests, got certified as an English teacher, internationally certified by the University of Cambridge to teach English as a second language. Went to Mexico, started a business. For about 5 years, lived where I was this is how I described myself, an international marketing communications coach for multilingual companies in Mexico, right? Working on such things as email writing in English for businesses, various writing and listening and speaking, presentation skills, all the things needed in a communications or marketing standpoint for companies that do international business, mostly in English. So you can imagine if you work in Mexico or India or China for a company like Pfizer, there's a universal language that has to be used to do basic operations, and that's English. So it doesn't matter what country you're in, you're operating in English. Therefore, there's certain things that are universal, like the U.S. business customs and English, that have to be applied to other countries. So I saw this opportunity for a business to explore, to travel, to go out, do something different, something interesting, something that I thought, broaden my horizons and have a little fun while I was doing it. So that's what I did. For about 5 years, became bilingual, learned all about Mexico, traveled the whole country, lived there, got married there, had a child there. So from vacuum demonstrations to Mexico, I've had my share of financial sales, mortgage sales, vacuum cleaners, some investment plan selling, telemarketing, dabbling in other products, and then a lot of entrepreneurship, which involves selling at various levels. So I had some skills I was accumulating, not sure where it would take me in life, following different passions and interests. And it wasn't until I came back from Mexico around 2010 when I realized an industry had emerged that not only would become my life career, but also my passion, and also the perfect place to manifest the years of skills and education and experiences and passions all together into an outlet. And this was the MMJ, medical marijuana cannabis industry. So in identifying what I could bring to the market that was unique and different, something that I thought others could not or didn't offer. I began to think about what I could do. That was not just talking about weed from a stoner standpoint, right? Getting high, using product, doing various things that were probably going to either be stereotypes or already redundantly done. I knew I had a passion in media. Video, radio was really always a strong point for me. So I knew if I could merge somehow this business and media idea and cannabis, that maybe I could niche myself in an area that was going to be something substantial, something different, and something that you could make a stake, a claims in. So I knew in order to do this, I had to define not only who I was, but what the business was and what I was doing. And I knew I wanted to center it around sales, something for a long time I've had a passion for, which probably developed from a young age, being that entrepreneur and going out there and selling, ingrained something in me. And there was something I knew fundamentally to be true, that in any type of business, it all depended on the sales, right? Everything else was secondary in the sense if you were not selling what your business had to offer, it didn't matter, you would be out of business. So it didn't matter how great your graphics team was or how great your IT team was, how great your even your marketing team was, right? And I'm making a distinction here. It mattered how good the sales guys who went out there and actually confirmed the exchange of business, the contract, the signing of the line, the business for services or product. These were the guys that made it happen. So what I want to explain and share with you is my story of how I went about developing a niche market for myself and defining my own theory in life and business of how my thought process is and how I go about developing this, just to show you what I'm putting into it, and maybe you can get something out of it. So you can start 2017 with an idea for a business that has maybe a little bit more of an outline, a plan for you to get started, to get going. That's my gift to you, is the sharing of stories. So I want to give you my story and how I think in developing what I do to help you spawn ideas for you to get started on what you do. And it's all about success in life, which is different than success in business. And they're not necessarily one and the same, mutually interchangeable. So let's talk about business and how to succeed in business, which is to succeed in selling what you have to sell, your product, your service. I see so many great people who are hard workers with great ideas and even great products and services that don't quite understand sales, and they go nowhere and they fail and it all falls apart because they didn't have a sales model, a sales process in place, something to move their idea from point A to point B to point C, which is very important in the realm of having somebody on your team. So if you're going to start a business, you have an idea out there, you've been following me for a few years, you've been plotting and planning and putting together your business ideas, you're ready to go. Now you're trying to figure out how to implement this into the world. Well, here we go. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to talk through it in full detail. I'm going to share with you how I think what I do, and then you're going to implement it. You're going to implement it on your end, and you're going to do it, and then you're going to send me your success story. So if you want to succeed in your business, you want to succeed in your sales, you're going to have to learn how to talk on the phone. You're going to have to learn how to ask people to spread the word via word of mouth. You're going to have to learn to give presentations, regardless of your anxiety and your fears of public speaking. You're going to have to understand a little something about media, TV, YouTube, online streaming, RSS feeds, podcasts, radio, magazines. What is the media around you? Because this is going to be an important part of selling what you have, of keeping your business afloat. See, for 2017, if you want to statistically beat the odds, you're going to have to work harder than ever, but you got to work smart. So work at it from the end goal that you need first. Don't spend 10 hours a day making sure you have the perfect logo. Spend 10 minutes to an hour figuring out your logo, another 80% of your time figuring out your sales, and then the rest of it figuring out the administrative part. Get your priorities straight. So learn how to do these things. Learn how to be on the phone. Learn how to talk to people. Learn how to give presentations. Learn how to interact with media and what media is. See, no matter who is doing the selling, the presentation must show what they are selling accommodates what the prospect or the customer is doing and for an efficient amount of money. I mean, these are pretty simple things, right? You would think, well, what do I do with my product? How do I communicate it to people? Well, let's think about it in very simple, basic terms. What you are simply doing is asking somebody what they do in regards to what you have and to see if you can help them do it for either a better price, a better product, or a better process. There is no one that can do this half-heartedly, right? We've heard this, that, the intent of sales is to sell more stuff, make more money, but you have to believe in your product, right? We've all heard of this. Believe in your product, believe in your product. Which is why it's so hard to third-party hire salespeople to sell your company. So if you're the CEO, you're the entrepreneur, you're the founder, whatever you are, it's your idea, it's your company, you are the salesman. You are the head salesman, which means you have to be the best salesman for your company. You can't have somebody else be better than you. You're the top C. They all turn on the table and look to you. So you got to be able to sell it at the end of the day. So what are you trying to do as a salesperson? Well, get in front of people. Metaphorically, physically, virtually, get in front of people so you can make them an offer and they can make a decision. Action can be taken. Revenues are generated. This is what puts the role of sales as being the vital part, the processing that lubricates business. Because they're the person who goes out there, finds the individual who has the money, and presents them with the offer, and then transaction occurs. See, all the exposure of advertising and marketing and promotions and all that stuff doesn't really generate revenue without a point of sale happening. And usually that point of sale involves a person. There has to be some point where a transaction of money for product or service happens, and there's usually a person that needs to facilitate that. So think about that in your product. Who's going to represent that best? It's probably going to be you if it's your idea. Don't farm that out to somebody else. Don't third party off that across the board to some minimum wage dude. No, you are the salesperson. It's your idea. So define what everybody's role is if you're going to work with other people. Who's responsible for what? If it's just you, if you're a lone wolf and you're doing it all, define your role for the day. Define your role for the hour. What are you doing for this task? What is your task right now? Are you engaged in a sales task? See, there's nobody else working for you, so you got to figure it out. Am I doing administrative accounting work right now? Am I doing sales work? Is this marketing work? Is this production work? Is this research? Once you know what you're doing for yourself, it'll be easier when you start working with other people. So you have to define your roles. You can't just go out there and try to do it all without a clear picture of who's doing what. What's the big picture? The big picture is that you're basically pursuing two main cycles. One is the prospecting cycle, and the other is the sales cycle. See, these two cycles happen simultaneously and continuously for the end result of sales to happen for your product or in your company. The sales model, the sales process. What is the process? The model in place you are following that brings sales from point A to point C, and point C is the cash. The check or the card. The definition we're going to use for sale is not one about registers, contracts, and order forms per se, right? This is more of a fundamental look of a sale, of what we're trying to accomplish when we establish the sales process. So you're selling edibles, you're selling sprays and lotions, you're selling timeshares, you're selling the best nug ever grown, pressed into the best concentrate. It doesn't matter. In general, a sale is following a philosophy. So what does it mean? So it's not really an event, right? It's not like he walked in at 8:12, he walked out 8:42, money changed hands, sale accomplished. I guess technically, if you were doing some type of measurement study or research analysis, that is how you might gather that data. But something that has a beginning and an end is not a sale from a company standpoint, because companies are ongoing and they keep going, which means sales have to keep going. And sales aren't just new sales. They're preferably and should be reoccurring sales from previous customers. So there has to be a process in place that's constantly working with people over and over and over again to infinity, right? The infinity of the company, maybe. So in order for a sale to happen, an ongoing process must be in place. Someone has to be contacted, right? Some stimulation. Then there has to be an offer made, some education. That offer has to be accepted, some avocation. And above all else, consideration has to be there, meaning each party get what they bargained for. Everyone's happy. Only with this process continuously in place happening can it really be called a sale. If we're not continuously working and profiting from our clients, then we're not making sales. We're just conning people. We're going from place to place, getting new sales, and then cutting ties and skipping town. That's a con, right? You have a legitimate business, you have a legitimate product, you sell it once to somebody, you never follow up, you never hear from them again, they never buy from you again. How is that any different than just selling them a placebo where you've conned them? So sales in philosophy is the foundation of a business because that philosophy interacts with the customer service in the grain of the company that supports the culture of what makes it thrive. In sales, the most valuable thing is a repeat customer. The only way this happens is if the client or the customer has gotten what they bargained for and would be willing to do it again and refer someone else to you too. The best way to produce these type of results is to have a proper system set up to make what we are doing the most efficient and effective. That would be the point of doing anything, not just to do it in namesake, but to try to make it better continuously. So this is why we constantly engage in education, research, learning, practice. So the first thing we have to look at is trying to figure out prospecting, right? Because prospecting, just like gold mining, is the process of searching the people you're going to potentially buy from, right? Without those people, you have no clients. Without those people that you have prospected, nobody exists that you can make an offer to that will take you up on that offer and give you money. So it's a method carry out to find people. Lead generation. You might have heard this before. Names and numbers. We're generating contacts. Fishnet concepts, right? These are all the strategies corporations, companies, they employ when they're out there on the hunt for lead generation. Dragging the net through the waters. Pull up as many names as possible, then go through, find out who's qualified. All right, these are all the traditional methods of telesales and marketing for lead generation that have been employed since probably 30s, 40s. I haven't done specific research on this, but I'm imagining since the beginning of this type of sales, the corporate life and the salesman. This is what we've been burned out on. This is what we're trying to move away from. But you have to understand it and where it came from and how it works to move away from it and find a better way to do it, right? What you're looking for is to constantly merge this prospecting, the lead generation, cycle with a sales cycle. So you're basically out there looking for prospects, trying to grab some attention, some interest. Then you're doing a little bit of research, find out who's who, find out who you're dealing with, who you can make offers to, which offers apply to whom, and then you merge with the sales cycle where you begin to work on proposals to move those people through the steps of presenting offers and then asking them to take action on those offers. So the tools available in prospecting, are not the same for everybody, but there's a general outline of roles that can be pursued in this broad scheme of lead generation. So typically before a business spends a lot of money for advertising and promotion, you want to do some research to find out who you're dealing with, who you're going for, how to communicate with them. This is all part of lead generation. This is why marketing and sales work together, because they're out there working with the same person, just from different angles. So your marketing person is very important, just like the salesperson, regardless of who is actually asking for money. Even if you don't have a dedicated marketing person to help you generate these leads, as the salesperson, you still have to engage in this process. So we have advertising. Go out there and grab people's attention through various campaigns of continuous ongoing messaging, through visual, audio, smells, and various other forms of media is a long-term advertising campaign. Public relations works in there from a sense of building education through non-advertising type roles. Marketing out there can do research, study analytics, help with website and content building. Salespeople pulling it all together to reach out and make offers. Customer service representatives in there to fulfill repeat sales, work with issues, make sure fulfillment is there. All of these roles work together. And if your company doesn't have the budget to dedicate a person to each one, you have to do each one of those. Because just focusing on one and lacking the others is not completing a sale as we defined earlier. So think about that. Advertising, public relations, marketing, customer service, sales itself, selling, promotions, all of these things involved in a continuous ongoing process dealing with people, building relationships. So speaking of relationships and selling, we have to address an idea that has been in sales for a long time that people continue to carry out in their daily lives as business owners and entrepreneurs, that I think in the year of 2016 we finally put a rest to it and changed it. And this is the fallacy of need-based selling. This idea that customers are out there in need of you, and you as a salesperson are out there building needs, identifying needs, and working from a needs-based standpoint is a concept that leads to assumptions, right? Assumptions like, if I can get myself enough exposure, people out there that need me will know I exist, thus sales will happen. Big leap. If this were true, 75% of businesses that start up would not fail in the first few years. Right? It's the biggest marketing strategy that people use out there. Is just simply advertise and promote and sales will happen. Right? So notice the list that I rattled off: customer service, sales, marketing, public relations, advertising. That if you're just focusing on one, advertising, you're basically saying people need me, thus all I need to do is let them know I exist. Let that sink in for a second. But let me move on. So let's look at what works best. Direct intentions. Transparency. Honesty and putting all your cards on the table is the best policy. And this is where salespeople go wrong. And this is where customers go wrong in dealing with salespeople. Honesty and transparency is always the best policy in human relations, and that is no different for a sales interaction. So when you're building your company, your team, or just out there by yourself pushing your product, you have to be sincere and honest. It's not about manipulation, about what you can do as the salesperson to somehow manipulate or do something to that person. This is the biggest fallacy, is that you are doing something to that person that is making them buy. Because they would not buy unless you did something to them to make them buy. So take need-based selling in its raw form. Identify needs, present solutions, expose pain. To think that people need you and that only you have the painkiller. What I'm pointing out here is that we're not need-based selling, but instead we should be relationship-based selling. See, we don't want to deal with people on any level that is not with the purest of intention of establishing or building or reinforcing a relationship that's not rooted in manipulation. Point being, if you are need-based selling, you can only present solutions of benefits and features. How what you have is the painkiller for the prospect's pain. Benefits and features have nothing to do with relationship selling. Finding out what people do to help them do it better is relationship selling. People do not need you. Here's what people do need: food, water, shelter, health. Right? Seriously. If you ask a question or make a statement that brings up benefits and features or something in regards to your product or service that you are selling, and you're presenting it as a need to their pain or their problem, then you're basically saying the only reason you exist is to take care of their problem, and you cannot have a relationship as a human with them. See, to effectively need-based sell, you have to ask questions and present solutions that are intended to identify a need, and then come up with a solution to present. This puts the salesman in a contradicting position. As a salesman, you are hired to get paid to sell your company's product or service. Find people to give you money for what you have. When you meet with someone, you have to do two different things at once and then make a decision. First, figure out if the person has the money to buy what you have. And second, find a need for them to justify buying what you have. Need-based selling requires finding a need to create urgency, allowing for an immediate sale. And need is a very loosely thrown around term, but let's take a closer look at what a need is. A need is something that is causing pain to the point of having to take care of it, or else potential death will occur. Metaphorically, this can be personal or business. Sales training has taught people to find a connection between what they have and how what they have can work into that prospect's life. If there's a fit, then therefore there needs to be a need. The only way to solve the pain is that one has to take action now because it's a pain point that is in need of attention. If you first sell the relationship and build on it, people will come to you when they need help or have a need. If you talk about anything other than what your prospect does or is doing and how they are doing it and what their intentions are, then you are just simply waiting to pounce like a tiger, to be manipulative. And that's not a way to engage in relationships, waiting for a pain point and urgency so you can step in and sell something. Instead, we should be focusing on the relationship of the people we meet, finding out about them, learning about them, and waiting for them to present problems to their friend in a relationship that might be able to help, rather than a salesman who shows up just in time to solve your pain. If you just sell the relationship, you will get their business and more of their business when pain does occur. That's the basic statement I'm making. Need-based selling is based on the theory of this doctor-authority type relationship. One is a professional who can cure pain, and you are the layman waiting for the professional to give you the solution, the prescription. How do you not build and battle your ego when this type of dynamic is set up? How do you not look at your customer or look down on your customer? The reality is, people don't want or always know what is good for them. So when we identify a need, we skip the question of want. So the prospect must be overwhelmed by squeezing the pain points so they give and agree to buy what you have a solution for. Most people now have been conditioned to salespeople and how the market pursues them. They know salespeople are looking for needs, so like those who keep certain information from a doctor, they too try to hide information from you. Why? Because if you find it, then they are exposed and they have to face a decision of change. Nobody wants to be put in that vulnerable position. So even if it's true that you have found a need, the game of persuasion starts of trying to convince this person that the solution is best for them. This is why if the questions of what you have done and what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish are talked about, there's no hiding of information and no I gotcha moments. They're simply an assist to their plan, to their game plan. You're an assistant to making their plans happen. You're not stepping in. You're not the intermediates. You're not the doctor that you're having to take time out for and go to because something happened, because you're in pain. You're simply dealing with a person who is trying to assist you in your goals and understands what you do and how you do it. That's a different dynamics of a relationship. Do you see that? Because we're not doctors, unless you're literally a doctor. We're entrepreneurs. We're salespeople. We're idea people. We're out there trying to get our idea or our product into the marketplace. But without it and without you, people won't die, which is different than a doctor. So as a salesman, we do a lot of different things. But ultimately, we're representatives and we're solicitors, right? The concept of thinking like a doctor is a stress-creating moment for this prospect-professional relationship, right? People get stressed when they go to the doctor. Why would you want to recreate this relationship when you're dealing with people who you're trying to get money from? Why would you want to create this authority figure to somebody you're trying to engage in to persuade out of money for your product or service? You're going to intimidate people into being clients? Because like doctors, people don't want to be asked uncomfortable questions and be put in awkward positions, be told to do things they don't really want to do, and be exposed for all the things they have been doing. People don't want to pay high prices for doctor fees. Think about that. People avoid hospitals and they avoid doctors. They should not be avoiding you. So as a salesman, our prospects often get this feeling. We ask personal questions, we're presenting a lot of things, we're getting involved in people's intimate lives, and ultimately we're asking them to part with money. And we have to be upfront about it. We have to lay our intentions out on the table, which means we have to be confident type people, which sometimes can be abrasive. Fine line there. Do you have the ledge to stand on when you talk to people, or are you frailing in the wind? So what we're going to do to figure out how to be better at relationship building and relationship selling is to work from a standpoint not of questions to discover need and pain points, but of questions of discovery to learn about what one is doing and how they do it. Nothing more at this point. Just simply questions of who, what, when, where, why, how, etc. Because what we're following is a golden rule of sales, right? We all know the golden rule of life. So here's the golden rule of sales. Help others get what they want, and you will get what you want. Now, I can't remember exactly if that was the Dale Carnegie book, Earl Nightingale, Brian Tracy. I forget exactly where I heard that, but that's not my original quote. But that's one that I also follow, and that is the golden rule of sales, and you should incorporate that into your philosophy. If someone wants something, why would you have to persuade them to take it from you? Think about that. Think about this scenario, this setup, right? This example. You're in a department store. You have customer A in a department clothing store. You have employee working in that department store. Customer comes up, asks a simple question. Does this shirt come in blue? So a traditional employee salesman would ask something like, well, would you prefer red or blue? Or do you want it if it comes in blue? Right? Questions that are all designed to trap somebody into a buying type question scenario where they're somehow trapped. Where, aha, we've got you. You said you would buy. Shake the hand, sign the check, and get out. But you're completely discarding the person. And this is what happens to us day in and day out. And you'll notice this. Notice this in big companies to small companies. Notice this when you're dealing with a one-on-one individual entrepreneur versus when you go into a massive department store where there's hundreds of thousands of employees around the country. Notice the fine details of training of how they teach people to interact with people. Are they zombies? Are they robots? Are they just trying to follow the ABCs of sales, always be closing and simply following these robotic-like actions? Or are they engaging as humans, human beings, in these conversations and relationships with people? You see, there's a fundamental flaw that people pursue in their human interactions. And that is the fact of starting out by finding a need, having an agreement on that need, then getting an agreement to the solution to that need. This is a stress-building process, a critical point, where along the way we're asking people to take action on a progressively stress-building scenario. Doesn't make any sense. So to help better come to terms with this interaction, I've thought about it in a business and relationships sense, and I've come up with this term of managing the integrated point of sale, or the integrated point of sale management. That this is the critical point where all these forces come together, where the final decision is made, where money is parted ways. See, it operates on the simple fundamental conclusion that business success is in its sales, a process of actively pursuing and making sales happen with people by finding out who, what, when, where, why, and how people live and make it better. And then you put the entire organization's actions towards achieving the mission statement and company goals, and this constant process of moving the client and company along this path of developing and selling products and services in exchange for money. All the while trying to maintain credibility, fulfilling the goals of the company, fulfilling the desires of the customer, and constantly seeking to perfect the process of that interaction where there is very little distinction between the customer and the company, divided by a thin line as money flows sometimes from company to customer, just as from customer to company, and ideas are built from company to customer and customer to company, where you're always constantly analyzing the situation, questioning, innovating, tweaking that original idea, creating and researching the plan of action, implementing that plan, measuring the plan and process, reviewing results, analyzing the results, and then questioning it all over again. It's all about cycles, following cycles, routines, patterns, infinity to keep moving forward. Understanding where you are in that cycle is a big part of it. You know, I have a friend who was doing from-home sales with a company where she had to set up home parties and then have products set out. It's kind of like, Tupperware type stuff where you could imagine people having parties, inviting their friends, and then looking at products and trying to sell them on it for the day. I asked a question once that when you have these parties and you're in home, what part of the sales process are you in? The beginning, the middle, or the end? She didn't know, and thus failed. She had no process, no model to follow, did not understand the cycles that carry you forward. So you have a contact, a name and a number, and you turn that person into a lead, which means they've been verified that they might be a good fit. Then they're a legitimate prospect. someone who's willing to explore the steps of this transaction with you. And if everything goes right, that prospect will turn into a client, and then that client will come back and be a repeat client. And the goal is to make that repeat client an unpaid marketer, advocate, customer service representative for you, bringing in other people to the product. You have to be organized, at least to a minimal. So when you're doing this prospecting and you're going through, just keep a simple list. Who are contacts? Who are prospects? Who are clients? Who have you called today? Who do you need to call today? Do you know your ratios? Do you know how many initial contacts you need to make of reaching out to people, to get follow-up leads, to get prospects, to make eventual sales? Do you know that ratio breakdown? If you don't, you're not following a path of organized success. You try to say, here's point A, here's point C, here's how I plan to get there, and you follow a path. You don't always get there in the same path, but you have a general idea, an outline. Success by accident, it was hard to duplicate, I would imagine, but also not very soul-soothing. To know you're successful but aren't sure how or why. It doesn't have to be elaborate spreadsheets. Just keep a sheet of paper. It says, how many people have I contacted today? How many emails have I sent? Put a little letter next to that person. Are they a L for lead? Are they a P for prospect? Are they just a C for initial contact? Are they an S for a client, meaning you made a sale? And then know how many it takes. Look at the market cap if you're working by yourself. You're always constantly studying your analytics, looking in your model for elasticity, where you can create little changes that create big impact, right? The last thing you want to do is spend a lot of time and energy on something and seeing very small change or impact. But what if you could create a small change that created a big impact? Organizing your sales and your process can do that in a matter of weeks. So there you have it, Canopreneurs. 2017 is upon us, and I'm bringing CCP into my 4th year, moving forward. So here's some of my goals for the new year. I want to work more on establishing more shows, better content. I'm going to bring bigger guests. I'm going to get in the heart of the people I talk to. I'm going to bring more methods of processes of learning, studies, things I've learned. I'm going to bring it to you. I'm going to teach you all about what it means to be a canopreneur from this industry, and I'm going to help guide you as much as I can. You have kept me going all this time. You have kept me going, and I thank you for that. I thank you for listening, for being there, for sharing, for sticking it out, giving me the motivation to keep going. This year, I'm going to put in every last minute working for you, making sure that you, the audience, the canopreneurs, are proud of this show just as much as I am. And I want to thank you from that, from the bottom of my heart. So I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. And I want to let you know that we don't stop fighting. This is your project. This is the Cannabis Community Project. We want you to join this fight with us. My name is Tarek Augustino Cohn, otherwise known as Brainstorm, and I am calling on you, Cannapreneurs, to be part of the Grind and Burn.